Welcome to There Must Be More, a Bethel Ottawa podcast. Remember to like and subscribe on YouTube at Bethel Ottawa and follow us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify podcasts.
So welcome to There Must Be More. So glad that you could join us. Today, we have a very, very special guest. Who is it, Sarah?
It is, drumroll, Pastor Peter.
Hey guys, I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. It's awesome.
Oh man,
Thanks
it
for
is
coming.
a joy for you to be our very first guest. So like this is
Number one.
This is new to all of us right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We have not interviewed a person before.
Right.
And I mean, I'm sure you have been interviewed before, but not by us.
Not by
so
us.
you don't know what you're
Our
in
very
for.
first
I have no
guest.
idea. I'm terribly nervous.
Well, you know, so are we. So let's just get into we want to get to know each other a little bit here, or for those people out there. What's new? What's going on in your life?
Oh man, so we're expecting a second granddaughter in Australia. We just rolled through Christmas. We were a family at Christmas time.
That's crazy.
So just, lots of great things happening. Yeah, church is going great. We're thankful.
Yeah, church is going great. We're all a part of the same church here, and God is on the move, which is very, very cool.
Very exciting.
So we want to do a little bio of you.
Yes.
Sarah, do you know a little information about them?
So I know a little bit, and then you can fill in the blanks. So Pastor Peter, you are our lead pastor here at Bethel, and you've been here for 6.5.
Correct.
Almost 7, which
Almost
is
7, yeah.
amazing. And so you've also spent some time in Southeast Asia,
Correct.
and you were regional director for
Southeast Asia?
Southeast Asia. Okay, I was going to say
Southeast
missions,
Asia.
but I nailed it
Region.
the first time. So tell us a little bit about you and your experience, in church, with church.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your history with God.
So how far back you want me to go?
However
How
far the
yeah.
Lord tells you to
Whatever
go
you
back.
want. We want
here
to know
go.
everything.
So here we go. So actually, church has been part of my life from the very beginning. So I was raised initially in a Presbyterian church. Some Presbyterian church fans here, no doubt. And we moved to a new town when I was 12, and there wasn't a Presbyterian church there. There was a United Church. So we went to United Church. While I was in the United Church, I actually became a follower of Jesus. So I came to the conclusion that religion is what I was trying to do, which is the church experience at that point for me. But then I also at that point realized that relationship was what Jesus offered.
Yes.
And so I became his follower then, which is awesome. And at that point, I actually met a young lady who went to a Pentecostal church. And because of that attraction, of course, I actually married her, just so everybody knows. Eventually, I went to the Pentecostal church. And at that point, after a few years in that church, I really felt God leading me into ministry life.
Yeah.
Become part of ministry in the church. So I went to Bible college, graduated from Bible college in 1983 before
I was born.
I was 6.
Hey,
You were
there you
6?
go.
And
so
10 years before I was
graduated
born.
from Bible college, pastored in a church in Newfoundland to start with, which was great. And then after that, went to a church in Western Ontario. Following that, I actually pursued further education. So I finished off an undergrad degree in theology. Then I did a master's degree in theology. And while I was doing that, I was in a church as well. Then I actually went over. It just means I put time into that. So then we moved overseas.
Someone's looking for a pay raise.
Yeah. So then I went overseas and did some more further studies there. Came back and ended up pastoring a church in Brampton. I was actually a music pastor.
Did you sing?
I didn't know
not
that.
Well. Not well.
I did not know that.
Yes, I was music
Full
pastor.
I know
surprise.
you're a piano player.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Extraordinaire.
No, not really. But anyway, so then pastored there, I was a music pastor for 3 years. Then I became lead pastor for 7 years. So 10 years in that church.
Okay, I have to ask.
Yeah, okay.
What was the big worship song when you were lead pastor?
that's a
what
good
was
question.
I know.
Shout to the Lord.
Oh, yeah, Darlene Check.
Oh, that was the big one.
Oh, yes.
It was.
Darlene was a big deal.
Darlene was a big deal.
was huge.
I
It was
remember
really
that
big.
song,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Really
Okay,
good.
sorry.
Yeah, so then became lead pastor of that church for 10 years total. And then we felt called to go into cross-culture ministry, which is the Southeast Asia piece.
Yes,
And actually,
shout
so
out.
Sarah, you're with us for a bit.
I was.
in
We got a
Asia.
connection.
Yes, we do, which is awesome. And I was there for 10 10.5 years, then came back from Thailand, where we lived, in Bangkok, for 10.5 years here to Ottawa, to Bethel. And that is how I've landed where I am.
Yeah, and you walked into Bethel, saw those rose-colored pews, and said, this is the home for us.
This is Dusty Rose.
Dusty
Rose.
Instant love at first sight.
Yes.
Absolutely. It's great. No, honestly, we're thankful to come here. Great church, great people. So
awesome.
Yeah. That's so good. Okay, wow. Thanks for sharing all that.
Yeah.
You have like a huge history with the Lord, which is so important. Rob, did we say what our topic is today?
We haven't said
Okay,
what
so this is great.
the topic is today.
Okay, are you going to tell everybody what the topic is? Because
the topic is, does church matter? So
great topic.
It is a good topic.
Yes.
But one thing that I think we want to start off asking is, because let's just get right into it.
Yeah.
In the last 10, 20, 30 years, what do you see, because you've been in ministry for a little bit, what do you see as a level of our concern for church? Or do you think that people still put the same value in attending church on Sunday?
Well, thinking about this, I have looked at over the years at the numbers of attendees in churches across Canada, and if attendance numbers across churches in Canada are any indication, then that would mean interest has declined. So basically, as a society, we've moved away from our memory of Christianity, which actually had dominance. So the Christian faith had dominance in our society from its very inception, 1867, until roughly after World War II. And because of the perceived dominance of Christianity in our society for so long, the church really just lived with comfort, right? Lived with acceptance. So, hey, everyone went to church. It's a good thing to go to church.
Right.
So it was pretty static for a long time. But then that shifted. And social attitudes have actually now shifted, and Christianity has been replaced by and large by secularism and by consumerism. And that impacts the church because if we aren't tuned into those influences, they'll directly influence our understanding of the importance of church and understanding of our role and the role that church has in society. It actually can diminish our awareness of a need for vital faith, and we need to lean in for our need for gathering with other people's of faith, which is so important. So just as a side comment for you guys. So I kind of touched on, I was overseas doing some studies there. And overseas, what I was focusing on is what's called secularization. So secularization is the decline in great word, right? Yeah. The decline in influence of religion in society. Decline in influence. Decline of influence of religion in society. That doesn't, however, mean that there's necessarily a decline in spiritual interest. Just the decline in influence. So actually, I read a little article in CTV News back in November. The reports that spirituality, they did a poll. Spirituality in Canada is on the rise.
Interesting.
And that actually presents a real significant opportunity for the church. So interest is declining in church. Interest in spirituality is actually increasing in Canada.
Very interesting.
Yeah, isn't it though?
Yeah, I think that just shows people are searching.
Like
they're looking for something.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why I think church is
So there's part of this is that it's a discussion, and I need you to know that I'm going to ask you a question I didn't put on the on the list for you. We can always go in and cut this out if but and that's really easy to do. But I'm just going to ask it anyways. What do you think plays into that change in power dynamic, I guess, or like the loss of influence that the church once had?
Yeah, well, I mean, historically, a lot of pieces here, but one of the significant pieces is the shift in how societies actually work. So if you look historically, prior to the Industrial Revolution, which is 1800s, it was a rural. Most societies were rural, and so if you're a farmer, you're depending upon God to open the heavens so rain upon your crops. You're depending upon God to keep your herds healthy, so you can actually produce on your farm, that sort of thing. So you're really dependent on the land and dependent upon the Lord who provides, the food for the land, as it were. Yeah. So one of the big shifts happened in the 1800s when the Industrial Revolution came, that no longer did it depend upon God for my well-being, for my income. I depended upon the guy who signed the check and the factory that it worked in. And so basically, there was a statement I read many years ago that when the Industrial Revolution came, it emptied the sky of angels. Wow. Meaning, we didn't think about God so much anymore as a society in Western culture. Yeah. Because we didn't need him like we did. And that was really the start of this big shift. Yep. And so industrialization, alienation of families, people moving to urban centers, which still happens to this day, from rural centers. Yeah. So the whole shift, macro shifts of society and how people move, how people relate. So there's so many pieces to that. Yeah, for sure. Right?
It was definitely a big question.
That's when it starts, and so when we don't need to depend upon God for things, then we forget that he actually is there.
Yeah, I think one interesting thing that you bring up there is that we almost, I feel like we think in really short terms, right? Like generational almost. So we could be like, well, Gen Z, the millennials, they are ones coming in not caring so much about God, whatever the case. But this has been 100+ years of transformation.
And it's Western culture. Yeah. So like going back to Southeast Asia, so we took some language classes there, and I remember in one of the classes them asking, who here has seen a ghost? And all the students that were from Asian countries trying to learn Thai said, I have. And all the students that were from Western countries were saying, what do you mean a ghost? They don't exist. Yeah. So basically, spiritual awareness in the West has really diminished, but we can't just think in the Western term. Basically, everywhere else in the world, which is the vast majority of the population of the world, very spiritually minded.
Absolutely. Right? And that's moving in. Like, we have people coming from all over the world.
Exactly.
Oh, that's really, really, really interesting. So I'm just like, I'm sorry, Sarah.
No, this is good. I'm listening. I'm taking in all the answers.
I'm actually going to go into the next written question because we know that there's this decrease that we see, but we also then, as you mentioned, know that we're living within this sort of this heightened interest in spirituality. Yeah. But like for the Christian walk, why do we need to remember that church is important?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Basically, we were never meant to be alone or to walk alone. I mean, when you look at the composition of God himself, Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, there is social connection within the Godhead itself. And that's reflected in us as human beings created in God's image. So we're social beings. We're social creatures, right? And so we're never meant to do life alone. And that's why the church is also called a community of faith. So community being the functional word here, a community where people kind of gather. So everybody has a longing to belong, and everybody has a longing to be part of something that's bigger than themselves. Yeah. So thinking back to November, so World Cup fans, Argentina won the World Cup. Shout out to Argentina. Condolences to the fans of the French team. So they wanted to have a celebration in Buenos Aires, the capital of Argentina. So they go there. The plan is to have the team on the top of open air buses. Remember like the Raptors did when they won the NBA championship? Yeah. So they went through Toronto and all the crowds were there. So they wanted to do this. Yeah. However, what happened was so many people showed up because the people want to be part of something bigger than themselves. Over 4 million people showed up, jammed the streets. So what they had to do is they had to airlift the team in helicopters and fly them over the crowds. There's a lot of them messing. Hey guys, we won.
That's amazing.
From the helicopter, right? And so what that just points to for me is that people want to be part of something, and they want to be part of something bigger than themselves.
Yes.
And I think thinking back to like the pandemic, right? Yep. We all remember the pandemic. The pandemic, we learned that isolation is damaging for people of all ages, whether they're kids or seniors, anybody in between. I mean, we're still experiencing the collateral damage of that. So social alienation, anxiety, depression, loneliness, all those sorts of things. So we were not made to be alone. We're not made to be isolated. And also within the church context. So we're all part of a body. And one of the metaphors of the church is the body of Christ. And we all have a piece to play in that body. So without every part functioning as God intended it to function, it doesn't work well. We're in a deficit. So every person, this is why it's so important. Every person has a part to play in the overall function of the body, which is the church.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up because it stirred something in me. My question from this, obviously we live in society where people say that like 20% of the people do 80% of the work. I actually think it's probably more like 10, 90. But like, you want to encourage people to take on their giftings and their role as a body of Christ. How can we do that maybe more effectively going forward and not put a burden or like put bondage around people of you need to do more? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think in part it's helping people to realize how gifted they really are. Because so many people, I mean, this is what I see as a downside of social media, because people post their make-believe lives on social media, and then I look at that and I think, man, I can't do that. I can't do that sport. I can't do that dance. I can't do that, whatever it is they're doing. And so that really is demotivating to me, and I end up not recognizing the gifts that have been given to me. So I think that it's really important that we help people understand that everybody's gifted. Everybody has some skill, some talent that I don't have. Everybody has a part to play in this body. And so it's not like you must do this or else. It's like, no, function in the giftedness God's given you, and you'll be more fulfilled when you do. Like when you fulfill the purpose of your creation, like you're created to be this, then you just feel so much better.
It's true.
Right?
It's
so
true.
much better.
And I think that sometimes what we do is we put these gifts on different levels. Right? Like if you are the charismatic speaker, you're somewhere up here. But if you're the one who is amazing at just knowing when to step in and help, that's some kind of lower level. And that's discouraging as well.
Yeah, because I think one of the great things that Jesus did is he brought equalization. So Paul will say this he's one of the apostles, right? He says this in Romans 8, neither Jew nor Gentile, Greek nor free, male nor female. So basically he's saying those categories that define people, that pigeonhole people, they don't exist anymore. And that also includes and can be applied to, I think, our misunderstandings of hierarchy of gifts. This is more important than this. No, absolutely it's not. Everybody has a part to play. Everybody needs to play that part well. So I just need to recognize what my gifts are. Like, I'll never play in NHL because I have weak ankles. I can't shoot a puck. I can't. So I just need to recognize that.
I thought maybe you still had a chance.
No, it's past. That ship has sailed. But anyway, so I just have to recognize what I can do and what I can't do, and then be content with the role that God has called me to play and fulfill the purpose that He's destined me to have.
That's absolutely fantastic. And I love that what you touched on with Jesus is the original speaking truth to power, right? In like actual real truth. Right? Bringing everybody to that same ground, which is
equal.
really...
He's the equalizer. I love that you said that. He's the great equalizer.
He is.
That's so amazing. Okay, so we're talking about, does church matter? And so we talked about it kind of in like the Christian church context. So I kind of want to touch on, what if you're not a Christian? What if you don't go to church? What if you, why does church matter for that group of people as well?
So let me kind of respond globally to that first, because of a global perspective that I have. So you got to see some of this too, Sarah, which is so great to have you there with us. This is what I saw. So the church, as I see it globally, is involved in social justice. It's involved in education. It's involved in hospitals. It's involved in the care of children and feeding of children. It's involved in famine relief. The church is often the first organization that's there in a crisis, and the last organization that leaves. If you were to ask international organizations, which I have, they would tell you that the church globally is indispensable in responding to practical issues. So that's the one piece, the global piece. So on the local practical level, there's also something called redemptive lift. Redemptive lift is this. When I give my life to Jesus, he starts to change me for the better.
Yeah.
Right.
And when he changes me for the better, I start caring about other people. I start caring about more than just myself. I become a better spouse. I become a better parent. I become a better employee. I become a better member of my community. So because this principle called redemptive lift is operative in my life, when I gave my life to Jesus, he actually influences me to be a better citizen. So from the local perspective, Christians bring hope, they bring joy. Christians volunteer to help in higher numbers than people who aren't followers of Jesus. Let me give you an example. So you guys know here at our church, we have a food bank that operates out of our building called Care Center Ottawa.
Yeah. Such a great job.
So so if you look at the numbers, from 2021 November to November 2022, the number of people using food banks in Ottawa, our city, has increased by 24%. Like, that's huge.
Yeah.
And so Care Center Ottawa, it served in November 2022, which is the most recent stats I have, served 1,200 families. And the majority, if not all, of the people who volunteer at Care Center Ottawa are followers of Jesus.
Yeah.
So they lean in. So I've looked at some stats and some studies. So here's a kind of shakes down to.
Let's go.
Christians financially contribute to charities in higher numbers. Okay. So the giving to charitable organizations has decreased in Canada. It has increased and is increasing through churches and through believers.
Amazing.
Churches provide help for the poor. Churches provide programs for kids. Churches support schools. Christians tend to be more civil and more kind, including on social media platforms. And beyond the practical side of things, the question you asked, everybody needs answers.
Yes.
Everybody needs answers to the ultimate big macro questions of life.
Yes.
And we have the answers.
So good.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
We have the answers.
Does God matter?
Yes.
Does God exist?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, we all ask that.
Exactly.
And we just kind of talked about that last week in our
last
podcast.
episode.
So that is fantastic. And like, for me, if I go back to like our testimonies, when we weren't followers, we really, even though we both, I think we would agree on this. We both had friends. We both had people around us. There was like all of the appearance of community, but I still felt something missing, and
Satisfied.
I still felt like I didn't quite belong.
Yep.
Like I couldn't find that belonging.
That missing piece.
Right. And so that makes it important for both follower and people who are searching.
Absolutely.
Like, there's a place to find the answers that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Wow.
So good.
So good.
So good.
All right. So let's, what kind of time do we have left there, producer lady? We have 9 minutes. Okay, cool.
Good.
Okay, so I'm stealing your question here.
I was going to say, we want to make this practical, right?
Yeah. Do you want to do it so I don't steal it from you?
Well, you just told everyone you're going to steal it, so.
I know, but I feel bad now.
Why?
Well, because I'm stealing.
It's okay. I'm not greedy.
It feels like a ping pong game, and I'm the net in the middle. It's kind of
That's true. It's good.
Right?
We're just keeping you like alert and
we just
working out those
we
neck
want to
muscles.
make this practical for people who are listening. So Rob, go ahead.
Okay. So do you have advice for somebody, right, who might be considering going to church, or maybe they want to return? They're just not sure.
They're feeling nervous.
Yeah, I mean, they go on social media and they see the bad actors.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. Do you have advice for somebody?
Yeah, I do. So I think a baseline for me is that in every human heart, there's a God-sized hole that only God can fill. So people try to fill that hole with relationships or money or sex or possessions, all that kind of stuff. And it ends up being empty. Like you said, like all these things that still don't feel like I belong, there's a missing piece. That's the missing piece. And so in every human heart, there is this longing to know the God who created them. And so I would say to people who haven't ever been to a church, like, give it a try. Experience for yourself, because you can see all kinds of stuff on social media. You can go on to whatever, if you're watching TV and see whoever kind of stuff, but that isn't necessarily an accurate representation of the church that's in your community, that's in your neighborhood. 100%. So go and try it out. Like, you might like it. Try it, you might like it, right? When I was a kid, my parents always used to try to get me to be a bit more adventurous with my food. I'm like, no, I like potatoes and peas. That's all I like, kind of stuff. I wouldn't try it, and I didn't know if I liked it until
potatoes and peas.
Yeah, what
kind of child were you?
That was a weird one. Anyway, so until I actually tried it, I then discovered that I liked it.
Cake.
Cake. I like cake. Always, right?
I do like cake.
I do like it. I do like it. Yeah, exactly. So people have never been to a church.
Yeah.
I say, try it. Try it. Because this is actually what you've been longing for. You just didn't know what that thing was.
Yeah.
And then for people who have been in churches and maybe just drifted away, maybe didn't mean to, or maybe you got hurt. Maybe people get hurt in church, and it's really sad because that's not what God ever intends. And I would say this, if you go to any organization, somebody's going to hurt you. So that doesn't mean that the church is full of perfect people who don't make mistakes, because we certainly do, because we're human.
Absolutely.
But we are not the only organization that has stories around it where people have gotten hurt, right?
People are people.
So I would say, for those, if you've been hurt in a church, give it another chance, give it another try, and don't let your experience in church then transfer onto your concept of God.
Right.
Because people will always let you down, but God never will. Right.
Yes.
And so if you've been hurt, you just try to get past that and try it again. I'm just sure you'll be welcomed with open arms.
Yeah, I love that, and I love that you spoke to how we approach going back or going for the first time. Like, going with an openness to whatever God might do is just absolutely so vital, isn't it? Because when we go in with preconceived notions, we're going to try and look for different things. But if you just let God, you just don't know what he might do for you that day.
Exactly.
Which is so cool.
So come with an open, seeking heart.
Yeah, right? Yeah. An inquisitive,
Best you can.
An inquisitive heart, right?
God will always surprise you.
Always.
Always. Okay, if you could leave our listeners with one thought or one advice to give about does church matter, what would it be?
I would say this. When church is what God intends it to be, it is the most beautiful thing in the world. It isn't always what God intends it to be, because people get in the way. But when a church is healthy, when a church is God honoring, when a church is God seeking, when a church is doing its very best to be what God intends it to be, it is the most beautiful thing in the world. So why does church matter? It matters to your faith. It matters to your kids' faith. It matters to your grandkids' faith. It matters to your neighbor's faith. It matters to your colleagues' faith. It matters to your fellow students' faith. Church matters for eternity.
That is okay.
Boom.
Exactly.
Drop.
I have nothing more to say, because I will just bring it down.
That summed it up
Absolutely.
So beautifully.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Pastor Peter,
our first guest.
I'm so honored. This is awesome.
I think we came to the determination that church does matter.
It does.
Yeah,
and it doesn't just matter a little, it matters a great deal.
On so many levels.
Yeah.
I actually just want to throw in a little, if you want to go to a place where you can experience God, Bethel in Ottawa is definitely one of those places where God is at work. So we want you to come.
We want you to come.
We would love to have you here.
Feel welcome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Yes. I think that's it for us. So let's give it to our outro.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to There Must Be More podcast, a production of Bethel Ottawa. You can catch us on YouTube, where we would love it if you liked and subscribed. You can also catch us on Apple Podcast and Spotify.